Did you know that Google personalizes many searches by city and Also Asked is the only tool to access live People Also Asked data at city level? Try for free at alsoasked.com.
I was going to say that SEO with Fat Joe is as peaceful as this, but then the birds are all having fights.
Tired of SEO guesswork? Quadra's AI agent goes deeper to uncover high-impact optimizations and completes hours of SEO in minutes. Get started now.
Thank you, Kelvin. It's so nice to be back here. I haven't actually been back at Brighton since 2019 when I spoke about EAT, so a lot has changed since then, and I'm just so happy to be back here. And thank you all for being here. I know I'm the last thing between you and the pubs and the weekend, so I appreciate very much that you all stayed. For anybody that doesn't know me, my name is Lily Ray, and I'm the VP of SEO Strategy and Research at AMSIV. We are a digital marketing agency based in New York City, and again, just thrilled to be back here with you all today. So, it's 2025, which for me marks my 15th year of doing SEO, which is a bit surreal. As I was building this presentation, I had this kind of random thought that I was like, if my SEO career was a child, it would look like this by now, which is really surreal and a little bit trippy, but that was just a random thought that I had. And then I was curious, how many people here have been doing SEO for 15 or more years? Show of hands. Quite a few, okay. How about 10 or more? 5 or more? And less than 5. Awesome, so pretty diverse mix of people, and that's what I was kind of hoping for, because we're going to talk a lot about a lot of different aspects of SEO today. But I will say, if there's one thing that you learn after doing SEO for 15 years, it's that SEO tends to follow this kind of predictable cycle. So to start, an SEO might find some type of tactic for driving a lot of organic search traffic to their website. And because we're an industry that likes to share, that's why we're all here today, the SEO might go share that tactic publicly. They might go speak about it at conferences. Or even if they don't speak about it, their competitors are using lots of tools to kind of reverse engineer how they're doing it. And Google and the other search engines are paying close attention, of course. And in many cases, they will develop algorithm updates, new policies to kind of devalue and demote these types of SEO tactics that in many cases they consider to be spam. And that leads us to the part of the cycle where once successful SEO tactics start to be kind of like devalued, demoted, penalized, or just treated as spam. And of course, being the industrious people that we are, SEOs will then go on to look for the next opportunity. So if you actually want to know how Google feels about spam, this is a fantastic video that they published on YouTube in 2019. It's called Trillions of Questions, No Easy Answers. And the next few slides will be some actual verbatim quotes from Google employees throughout that video. So number one, they say spam is one of the biggest problems that they face at Google. They also they say that fighting spam is a cat and mouse game. So we're going to talk a lot about that today. A Google employee says that this is a war that they're fighting, and it's not something that they think will ever really be solvable. So if you think about this cycle, we can basically take it and apply it over the course of SEO history. And the reality is, this Google versus SEO cat and mouse game, it's a tale as old as time. I think many of us have lived through this cycle many, many times. So what I did as part of this journey to kind of think about all these different cycles of SEO and talk to a lot of folks that have worked in the industry for a long time was I created a survey where I asked for a lot of people's insights and experiences about working in SEO for a really long time and what tactics did they use in the past and if those tactics ever caught up to them with different algorithm updates or penalties. So I had about 160 respondents, and I also spoke directly to some industry dinosaurs, people that have been working in this space for a very long time, so you'll be hearing some quotes from them throughout the presentation. So who's ready to go on a journey back through SEO history? Yeah? Come on, guys. Let's get more excited. Okay. Excellent. All right, so we're going to go way back in time. Before 1990, it was the SEO ice age. There were actually no search engines. I know some of you were not even born yet, but there was a time when we actually had to go to the library or use encyclopedias to get information. I remember literally looking things up in the encyclopedia back when I was a little kid. So it's basically the SEO ice age. But then, in 1990, we have the dawn of search engines with something called Archie, which it was created in 1990, and basically what it did was it indexed FTP archives. So it wasn't really a search engine in the modern sense, but basically just a tool that made it easier to find specific files using that indexed of FTP archives. Which leads us to the SEO Stone Age, so about between 1990 and 1995. Believe it or not, directory submissions were all you needed at this time. And this was also pre-Google. So we had Lycos and Excite and Infoseek and Yahoo and other search engines that were really the primary places that people would go for information. And in many cases, rivals didn't even know how to list their businesses. So all you needed to do to compete was just get your business listed in these directories. And back then, another thing you could do was just start your business name with AA or AAA, because in many cases the directory listings were alphabetized. So must be nice, right? Sometimes I wish we could go back to those days. I spoke to SEO consultant Ammon Johns. I think he's not here, unfortunately. He was supposed to be here, but did talk to him about this for a while because he's been in the SEO space for a long time. And he said back then it didn't even have the name SEO. We just called it web promotion or positioning. Which leads us to a pretty fun era of SEO history, which I would call the Wild West. So between 1995 and 2000. This is when SEOs start to develop tactics like doorway pages. So building hyper-optimized pages and websites that might point back to the page or the website that you really care about. They might do white text on a white background because search engines couldn't tell the difference, right? They couldn't really see that users couldn't see that text. They might stuff a lot of keywords into the page in a way that's not really helpful or readable for humans, but very much worked for SEO at the time. There's these reciprocal link web rings, so I'll link to you and you can link to me, and that worked really well. Meta keyword spam. Who here did meta keyword spam? Yeah, that's definitely how I started my career as well, just kind of stuffing keywords in the meta keyword field. And then again, domain names starting with AAA, because they would get you those early listings in any directories. I spoke to Brett Tabke, who's the founder of PubCon, and what he told me is, back then, search engines weren't sophisticated gatekeepers. They were chaotic libraries with no librarian. We were the ones that knew how to stack the shelves, and at that point in SEO history, we won. We really held the cards. We were the ones really kind of winning the game at this point. That was up until there was a new sheriff in town. And that new sheriff was Google and Matt Cutts, who oversaw the web spam team. So this is when things really started to change. And Google developed something called PageRank, the PageRank algorithm. In 1996, Larry Page and Sergey Brin developed PageRank, which was half named for web pages and also named for Larry Page. And basically, it was a way of measuring the importance of website pages. And basically, the more links that pointed to your site and the more high quality those links were, that was a simple calculation to understand how authoritative this web page is and how well it should rank in Google's results. So this was quite cutting edge at the time. Now you might be thinking, oh, well, maybe that made SEO a lot harder. Maybe people kind of I don't know, maybe they threw in the towel because it wasn't as easy as just spamming with keywords anymore, but absolutely not. That did not stop this industrious SEO industry. They saw a lot of opportunities with PageRank and with manipulating PageRank. So this leads us to what I would call the link building gold rush. I grew up in California, so I got a lot of gold rush history in my childhood. And this feels a lot like that. People discovered gold. They discovered the SEO opportunity. There's a lot of money to be made, a lot of ways that we can promote our businesses online. And this was essentially between 2000 and 2005, the rush to mine PageRank gold with aggressive link building tactics. So what did some of those tactics look like? We get blog roll and sidebar links. So if you start a blog, you might list all the companies that you want to link to or all the websites that you want to link to on your sidebar. There were, again, directory submissions. I think we still hear a lot of people to this day that are pitching directory submissions as a way to do SEO, but we had directories like Yahoo and DMOZ where you just wanted to get your website listed as much as possible. We had the start of link farms, so basically whole networks of sites that are just there for SEO purposes, linking from one to another. Site-wide footer links, so we discovered, if I put a little link in the widget, or a widget in the footer of this website or this network of websites and link back to my site, that can pass a lot of PageRank as well. We can stuff keywords and domain names. That's all it took at this point in time. Google and the other search engines cared a lot about having the actual literal keyword in the domain name, so just buy the domain name with the keywords in it. and forum signature links. So it became very clear that you could jump onto forums, create an account, create a profile, add a link back to your company site, leave lots of comments, and that would be a lot of links to your site. So it was pretty simple, a lot of fun back in the day. But of course, Google had to develop a response to this. And the biggest response that they had at the time was the Florida update in 2003. So what this targeted was keyword stuffing and over-optimization. It targeted hidden text and cloaking, again, so white text on a white background. Doorway pages and thin content. So again, not really useful for users, but hyper-targeted for search. Link spam and manipulation. So these were the early days of Google trying to kind of get ahead of a lot of the different ways that spammers and SEOs were manipulating links at the time. And mass directory submissions. So just adding your website to a bunch of different directories, even though it worked in the past, Google starts to crack down on it at this point in time. But that didn't stop the industrial SEO revolution, which I would define as an assembly line that started to churn out links and content at scale. This leads us to basically the industrial SEO revolution between 2005 and 2010. It's the era of SEO automation and production lines, the era of scaling and manipulation. We have tools like Xenu and XRumor and Screaming Frog that enabled us to do link building and site audits and crawling at industrial levels. So we could mass produce, forum links and backlinks across blogs, and it was kind of the explosion of a lot of what we would consider to be like black hat aggressive SEO tactics. I spoke to a self-proclaimed SEO janitor, Barry Schwartz, and what he told me was that in 2005, he made a one-page website on a throwaway domain and threw a bunch of links at it using a link network exchange. And he was actually able to outrank H&R Block for their own brand name during tax season. So again, this was a really kind of fun and exciting time in SEO because there was a lot of tricks that you could do and you could really see a lot of success from those efforts. But again, Google had to respond. So in 2005, one way that they responded was the invention of the rel nofollow attribute. So what they said is there's this new attribute that you can add to links to basically allow those links to exist, allow people to click on them, allow them to send traffic, but in the back end, in the code, you're saying this link does not pass SEO value. So for example, site owners that had forums or something, they could just make all the links in the forum profiles nofollow. So they didn't actually pass SEO value. And Google's web spam team also started to send manual actions. So you get that, you wake up and you get that message in Search Console that says you've been penalized by Google's web spam team. You start to see a lot more of this during this time. But the black hat boom continued. SEOs start to look for new and cutting edge ways to manipulate the search engines, like article spinning. So who here has done article spinning in their past? Yeah, me too. I started with article spinning. It's a lot of fun. It's almost like AI content way before AI content, but it's just regurgitating words and coming up with these nonsensical articles that still ranked quite well in search engines. High page rank backlinks, you start to hear a lot of people like buying and selling links from pages with high page rank and high DA and high DR and all this stuff. We get PBNs, private blog networks, so people are coming up with what kind of look and feel like websites, but they're really just a network of websites that all link from one to another. Again, we get blog comment spam, we get people who go onto someone's blog and say, this is really interesting, but you should consider buying my products, and it links back to their site, of course. Spamming directories like ezine, just kind of like blasting out links on as many directories as possible. Fake doorway pages, so you kind of land on a page in the search results that kind of looks and feels like what you were looking for, but in the end, it's really just funneling you to a different page. And cloaking, there's more and more sophisticated methods of showing the user and the search engine something different, and this is continuing on to this day. And again, exact match domains still continues to work really well at this time. So it was really the Wild West of SEO until the reckoning came. And Google was working hard behind the scenes. They were paying attention to what we're doing, and they know this is not the best experience for searchers. So Google brought out the big guns. And I would consider this era to be the greatest attempted death blow to SEO spammers in Google's young history at the time. So first, we get the Panda updates, starting in 2011. Between 2011 and 2015, Google released 28 distinct Panda updates, with the last one, Panda 4.2, rolling out in July of 2015. So it was really like several years of Google launching these various Panda updates, which targeted low-quality content and introduced this notion of site-wide quality signals, which is still very much at play now, where Google can look at the whole quality of the whole domain or host name or subfolder and say, there's something systemic about the quality of this whole site or this whole site section. And if you're affected by an algorithm update, you can feel the impact of that across the whole site section or the whole domain. We also get the Penguin updates. And this was mostly targeted at link spam. So it devalued unnatural links, link patterns, and overly optimized anchor text. So you might see a lot of people using, buying links with their money keyword thousands of times throughout different websites. And that was what the Penguin update was looking to penalize. And the Penguin update underwent 10 official updates before it was integrated into Google's core algorithm in 2017. To add to this wasn't an algorithm update, but it was a pretty big update in the SEO space. I personally remember where I was standing at the time that I learned this news, because in my young SEO career, I felt completely devastated when I learned that Google was going to be taking away keyword data in Google Analytics. Yes, for anybody that wasn't working at SEO at this time, we used to be able to see the exact keywords that searchers typed in Google Analytics and how they converted, and all the user engagement signals that we got from Google Analytics at the time tied back to the keyword in organic search. And when Google took this away from us in 2013, I don't know about the rest of you, but I felt like, I think SEO's dead. I feel like I'm not gonna be able to do my job anymore, but of course, we're all still here today, it didn't die, lots of opportunity. We just had to figure out how to kind of work around this challenge. But that's what we do, right? But I would say this led us to the era of the great SEO depression. Between 2011 and 2013, it was quite common to read posts like, SEO destroyed my will to live. We had different articles that were talking about the sad side to the Penguin updates, stories and testimonies from business owners who lost everything at that time. And you might even hear people, I'm starting over with blogging after Penguin killed my blog, or I'm done with SEO and Google. They've ruined my life. Are they morons or what? I think we still hear some of these types of complaints to this day. Not entirely uncommon. But yeah, it was a very tough time for those of us that were doing these types of tactics. I spoke to Gareth Hoyle, the CEO of Marketing Signals, and he told me, I lost 80% of my domains and services, which represents 7 figures in pounds annually, on April 24th, 2012, the Penguin update. He'll never forget that date. I think many of us feel the same. 100+ employees lost their jobs, 100+ clients lost their rankings, but Gareth admits, we were cheating the system, so it had to happen eventually. I think it's a very good quality in the SEO space to say, well, that's fair. We were kind of breaking the rules anyway. I spoke to Glenn Gabe, SEO consultant and founder of G Squared Interactive. He worked a lot on Panda and Penguin, and he said after Penguin 1.0 launched, he received a call from a frantic site owner. The site owner said, I got hit really hard. Can you take a look at my website and let me know what you think? Glenn said, sure, just tell me which domain got hit and I'll take a look. And he said, well, what do you mean? I have 400 of them. And turns out many of his one-page websites all disappeared with the Penguin update in one fell swoop, which was a quite common story at this time. Now, it wasn't just small websites that were being impacted. Something that I think was very interesting about these updates is they start to make major news. You can go in the New York Times and you can read about JCPenney and Overstock.com. They were actually penalized by these updates as well. I think some of them claimed we actually had no idea our SEO team was even doing this. And to be fair, it was a quite common SEO tactic. I mean, even myself, a lot of us were doing these types of tactics, not even realizing that Google was going to bring down the hammer in the way that they did. So it wasn't just small businesses, major brands were also being impacted, and you can still read on the New York Times about both JCPenney and Overstock and how it impacted them. So fun fact about the Penguin update, this is kind of my SEO redemption story. I started doing SEO in 2010 and actually didn't know that buying links was against Google's guidelines. I certainly didn't know that going on blackhatworld.com and buying link packages and pointing them to the company that I worked for was ever going to get us in trouble. We were ranking extremely well. So I thought, I was pretty young, and I was like, well, this is working, obviously, so let's keep doing it, right? My boss was like, whatever you're doing, keep doing it, right? Keep spending more money. So it was working really well until it didn't. And I went to work in 2012, I think it was July or August of 2012, checked our rankings every day like we did. Everything was gone. Out of the top 100 results on Google, all the keywords that we care about, we were completely penalized. And My plan was to print out all the links that we bought and start to disavow them one by one. It would have taken me years. So I actually just moved into the agency world at that point. But that was my penguin story. That's how I saw the light. I resolved to never, ever do that again, never, ever put a company in that situation again. So if you're wondering why I'm so white hat, that has a lot to do with it. So you must be thinking, well, SEOs must have been done SEOing by now, right? Like, what else is there? Google cracked down on everything that works. The reality is, on the contrary, this was the start of the golden age of SEO, in my opinion. SEOs began to publicly exchange information and ideas, and the industry was really experiencing this transformation. And they weren't afraid to talk to Google. They weren't afraid to come out and say, hey, Google, I'm trying to do things right. I'm trying to build a great brand. I'm trying to add a lot of great content to the internet. And so it wasn't uncommon for Google to come to, like here with Martin, here to come to the SEO conferences and help us do good work. So this is what I would call the SEO renaissance and golden age. This is the rise of worldwide SEO conferences and sharing of information, like here at Brighton SEO, or in the US we have MozCon and SMX. This was a time when people were exchanging ideas, helping each other, supporting each other, and very much exchanging with Google and trying to do things right for our clients. In the SEO renaissance and golden age, we start to see some of these enterprise SEO tools. SEO is kind of growing up and maturing as an industry. We start to report to our clients with more insights and data, and we're really getting a seat at the table. I mean, literally, I remember at this point in my career, I was getting a seat at the table in the room with CEOs because they were like, tell me more about this Google thing. How can we get more of that traffic? It's free traffic, right? So people are becoming very interested in SEO, and we get a lot of these great tools that are helping us do our job better. Also, link building is changing. So I remember this really fantastic talk by Lisa Pash, formerly Lisa Myers, at MozCon in 2017, which changed my perspective about link building, because it wasn't really as much about link building as digital PR. So she started to talk about, what our agency is doing is we're building incredible content and reaching out to journalists because they genuinely want to feature that content. They're doing viral content campaigns that are getting their clients a lot of visibility and a lot of links. They're doing HARO, help a reporter out, to help reporters do their jobs with the great content they're creating. And of course, they're doing social media marketing, which was still pretty early at this time. But it was a new way of thinking about link building. It wasn't about manipulating the algorithms. It was about doing real brand building, real great content, and people would naturally want to link to you in a way that doesn't violate the search engine guidelines. We also get some new advances in technical SEO, like HTTPS. We get hreflang for international SEO. We get schema markup. We get mobile-first indexing. Crawling and indexing is really starting to become a big topic that SEOs are very curious about. Accelerated mobile pages to load content more quickly. We get JavaScript, which is still something we talk about a lot here in the SEO space. Managing duplicate content with canonicals and all kinds of different ways to manage that content. And page speed optimization, which of course is a very big part of SEO today. So SEOs really start to become more technical in nature as we're working with development teams to ensure that search engines can process and crawl and render and index the content that we're putting out there. I spoke to my good friend Cindy Crum, the founder and CEO of Mobile Moxie. If anybody saw Cindy speak during this era, she was really obsessed with mobile-first indexing. And what Cindy said is that with mobile-first indexing, Google introduced a new primary crawler to reflect the user's shift to mobile usage. So of course, searchers at this time were very much switching to mobile devices. And only sites that were compatible with mobile crawling were added to the mobile-first index, which prioritized entities over URLs. So it was really shifting to mobile. And for those of us working in this space, it started to feel like, I think SEOs are like the internet army that's helping search engines to do their job better, right? They're putting out guidelines, and who are the people executing it? Who are the people implementing it? It's us. We're working with our clients and communicating with development teams and content teams about how to do things right to appear on Google and search engines, which is becoming more and more important. I spoke to Patrick Stocks, who's the product advisor and technical SEO at Ahrefs, and he told me SEOs are Google's unpaid workforce and propaganda arm. Google has repeatedly encouraged technical SEOs to adopt new best practices and technologies like AMP, HTTPS, mobile-first indexing, and page speed, only to later devalue and abandon them, which I think is really interesting. A lot of the times we do a lot of this work. We implement, who remembers rel prev, rel next, right? How much work did we do to get that implemented on our clients' sites, only for Google to say, you know what, we don't need that anymore. We got enough information, we can do this ourselves now. But we were the ones doing that work. And something that I think was interesting about this era of SEO opportunity was you could follow a lot of the best practices. You could go to the conferences and learn these things and implement them on your clients' sites. And honestly, you could get a lot of top rankings just doing those things. It was working really well, regardless of the accuracy of the content. So it wasn't uncommon to see sites like this where it kind of felt like, it wasn't AI content, but it kind of felt like it, right? It's kind of impersonal. It's not really data-driven or evidence-based, but it ranked #1 on Google. There was a whole lot of that until 2018 came around. Yet another big milestone for those of us with clients that get hit by algorithm updates. I was working on a client at this time that was very heavily impacted by the Medic update. So in 2018, it was August 1st, Google launched a core algorithm update. They didn't label it Medic, we did. When we started to piece together, oh, this is really disproportionately impacting health and medical websites and financial websites and politics and news, and what we would then learn is called Your Money, Your Life. And that's an acronym that comes from Google's quality rater guidelines. What also comes from Google quality rater guidelines that they were really pushing at this time, and that was changing a lot in that documentation, was EAT, which you've heard a million times today: expertise, authoritativeness, and trustworthiness. And I would say around this era of SEO, 2018 or so, EAT was becoming much more important than a lot of these other individual tactics that we were focused on. It was kind of eating them all up, especially if you worked on your money, your life type of content. At this time, I was doing a ton of research about what does this look like? How is this changing the search results? And this was one example that I pointed to a lot, because if you Googled the keyword hydrogen peroxide, which is your money, your life keyword, it can potentially cause harm to the user. Before, in 2018, you would see natural wellness websites and mommy bloggers and people talking about using hydrogen peroxide to clean your home or maybe for certain medical conditions. And if you looked at the same set of search results in 2021, when Google really started to double down on EAT, you would see a completely different set of results. It was much more clinical. It was much more medical and kind of science-driven. And this is exactly what they were hoping to achieve by focusing much more on EAT for your money, your life content. And this leads us to, much like where we are today, where we're still pretty obsessed with what are these signals that align with EAT. That's Google language. They use that phrase so many times in their communications. They're like, think about the signals that align with EAT. If you are a brand or a company or a website that has very good authoritativeness, good experience, good trustworthiness, what are the signals that Google's machine learning systems might be looking at to identify this is a high authority website, and we're going to look for the other types of websites that demonstrate that same authoritativeness. And there's thousands of them. It's not as easy as checking a box, but you really want to think about, hey, a lot of these sites have trusted authors. They have real experts and real doctors reviewing the content. They link to academic journals. They link to medical journals. They're citing real statistics and real data. And a lot of this stuff is very hard to fake. They're doing a lot of work. These pages are very hard to build. If you look at this particular example, Diet Doctor, you look at Andreas Enfeld, his author bio is like one of the longest pages of content you could read because he has a ton of accolades, conference presentations, science research that he's done and published, and so much about him. And this is when Google really started to look at those credentials, especially for your money, your life content. And at this time, Google also starts to focus on fighting disinformation and fake news. So this was kind of a result of the 2016 election in the United States, when they started to say, these are all the processes that we're changing and systems that we're updating to ensure that we are showing the most trustworthy, accurate, reliable information. And when a crisis is breaking out, we're going to make sure that our systems are not elevating fake news or disinformation, right? So this was also a way that the search results were really changing. And the timing was quite interesting because the world, of course, went on to experience coronavirus in 2020. And this really put Google's algorithms to the test. As we all know, there was a lot of questionable information circulating during the pandemic, and Google's new kind of focus on EAT, what later became EEAT, they had the challenge of only surfacing the highest quality, most trustworthy, highest EEAT content to answer questions around coronavirus. And I was also doing a lot of research at this time, and something I thought was really interesting was that the biggest winners of SEO visibility in 2020 were the CDC and the FDA. And I think before this time, a lot of us might have said, oh, their SEO teams are crushing it, right? It's not always about the SEO teams crushing it. It's about Google needs to show users this content because we're literally in a pandemic, and this is a matter of public safety. So sometimes external events happening in the world can actually influence what appears in the search results. This was also a time, and I would say we're still in this time right now, because we're SEOs, we want to reverse engineer everything. We become overly obsessed with these EEAT signals. And this was a great little exchange that I saw on Blue Sky recently with Nikki Pilkington. She says, stop treating author bios as an SEO tactic and start treating them as what they are, a tool for building trust with your actual human readers. John Mueller from Google retweeted it and said, I don't know who needs to hear this. I think many of us need to hear it. And to be honest, people can actually tell when author bios are fake or just an SEO tactic. It's kind of awkward, not reassuring. So I think if you're kind of spending time like trying to fake all that, your time would be better spent investing in working with real experts, or at least quoting them, or showing real evidence that you're doing the hard work in your content. So this leads us to the era that we're in now, which is the AI and automation era between 2022 and 2025. So much like the EAT flood that we saw a few years back, we are now obviously in this great AI flood of generative AI tools and large language models. But this really started to kick off in the SEO space around 2022. This is when you're going to start to see a lot of sites playing with the new like GPT-2 and new ways of generating generative AI content in their content strategy. You start to see a lot more people interested in AI content, and you're also starting to see a lot of this type of content on the internet. It feels very homogenous. In some cases, it doesn't have an author. It's kind of just saying the same thing everybody else said. It's using a lot of stock photography. It doesn't have any quotes from real people. And we're just seeing a huge influx of this type of content in the search results. I would also call this the era of the get-rich-quick scheme, the SEO get-rich-quick scheme. A lot of people are using these tools very successfully, getting a lot of rankings, making a lot of money, and of course, wanting to share what they've learned, right? Going out there on YouTube, which by the way is owned by Google, which I always think is a bit ironic, going on YouTube and talking about all the ways that they're spamming Google. And it's working. It's working tremendously. This is another gold rush in the SEO space. A lot of people are making a lot of money and sharing their tactics. Some of these videos have millions and millions of views. Everybody wants a piece of it. Everybody wants to jump on board and try how to become a billionaire with ChatGPT in 10 minutes, right? Sounds super appealing. We also have this other thing happening in the SEO space, which has been happening for a while, but really kicks off around this time as well, which is parasite SEO. Basically, the idea is to publish third-party content on a website that has a really good disposition to rank really well, like a propensity to rank really well because the site has so much authority and so much trustworthiness. There's different types of parasite SEO. Number one, we have user-generated content. So that's when you post something on Reddit or you post something on Medium or Hub Pages or LinkedIn, and maybe it's a kind of different version of a blog post you already posted, or maybe it has affiliate links back to your products, or maybe it has just links back to your website, or it's selling a product and service, and you just kind of post that on user-generated content sites. That's actually a version of parasite SEO. There's also sponsored guest posts. So up until recently, many different news publishers who were hurting for money for obvious reasons thought about, hey, if I just open up this section on my website to sponsored posts, people can pay money, submit a guest post, and suddenly you get Outlook India with thousands of articles about best CBD gummies and best casinos and all kinds of content that's not really aligned with what they write about or what they publish. But it's a huge revenue stream, and a lot of these news publishers and different types of online publishers are looking at opportunities to accept sponsored guest posts. And this stuff can rank really well. SEOs learned this can rank within a few hours in the first page. There's also a different type of parasite SEO which really started to happen, which is these more kind of secretive third-party partnerships where maybe we have a content creator partnering with a major newspaper publication, and they're actually producing the content in the background, but that relationship is not entirely clear, it's not entirely transparent, doesn't really say this is a separate business entity that's actually creating the content. Or maybe we have a casino company or gambling or sports betting or a coupon company partnering with a publisher, so they have a whole section of their websites dedicated to promo codes or casinos or gambling. That's the third-party partnership type of parasite SEO. And we heard this in a previous presentation today. This is when the world starts to catch on to like, you know what? Google search is just not delivering the results that it used to, and I'm getting really frustrated. And I think SEO is to blame. Must be all SEO's fault. Who read The People That Ruined the Internet? Yeah, if you haven't read it, you should read it, because it's kind of like a sobering view from the outside of how people think about the work that we do. I was interviewed by the journalist who wrote this article. I did not know her framing was going to be this. She was definitely celebrating the SEO industry. She spoke to a lot of pioneers in the industry, and it ended up being like, these people ruin the internet. I was like, what? That's not what we talked about. So it was a bit frustrating, but it's true. It's not hard to find these types of articles on Google right now, or anywhere online. People are talking about it all over the place. Google sucks, and it's all SEO's fault. We all did that. And Google heard the complaints. They also heard a lot of us in the SEO industry, like, what's going on with all this spam? There's AI spam all over the place. I'm doing good work with my clients, and it's not fair that the AI spam is outranking us. They heard us. They were working hard behind the scenes. And this is Danny Sullivan from Google issuing a warning late last year. He literally said, buckle up, because we're making some major changes to the search results. Which leads us to what I would call the great SEO crackdown between 2023 and leading up to today. First, we got the helpful content update, which was technically launched in 2022 and updated in September 2023. Anybody that was impacted by this knows this was a devastating update. It impacted thousands of websites, usually smaller niche blogs like recipe bloggers and travel bloggers, and many of them were doing really well with SEO. This is a Systrix chart that shows they were gaining a lot of visibility up until September 17th of 2023, when many of them lost 85%, 95%, 98% of that traffic and visibility, and very few have seen any substantial recovery since then. There was a lot of significant collateral damage with this update. A lot of people who were following the guidelines, a lot of people who were writing with real experience. I've talked to a lot of these publishers. I've read their content. They're trying to do things right. They weren't trying to be spammers, and they also lost 97% of their visibility. This has been quite a big uproar. I mean, Bloomberg wrote about this twice in the last 2 weeks, and Google's held a summit to invite some of these publishers to say, we want to make things better. We understand that we might have gone a little bit too far with these updates because you guys have great content. They literally told them that in person. So we'll see how that shakes out. But we also had the biggest update in Google's history, which was the March 2024 spam and core update, which lasted 45 days. Google had a literal war room in the Google office to make sure that this rolled out without breaking anything. And it caused a reduction in what Google calls unhelpful content by 45%. That is massive. It's the biggest update in Google's history. And I've done a lot of research about what this update actually did, and a lot of the time, sites were doing the same thing. They were writing about things like quotes and jokes and riddles and Valentine's Day wishes and this kind of like high volume keyword opportunities, where maybe it wasn't really connected to their core products and services, but there's a lot of volume, and they were churning out a lot of this content very quickly and kind of getting away from the main focus of the brand. It was writing for search, not writing for humans, and too much of that can get your site in trouble with these algorithm updates. And it wasn't just core updates. There was actually a spam update in December of last year where we started to see some pretty big trusted brands being impacted as well. Some of them were brands that we all kind of thought in the SEO space, they're doing things right. They're actually providing a great model for what good SEO looks like. Some of them lost 60, 70% of their visibility with the spam update because Google decided this is writing for search. It's not writing for humans. It's not close enough aligned with what your business actually provides its customers. It's too focused on SEO. It's not focused enough on your core products and services. So something I've been doing a lot of in my audits with my team is when we see clients impacted by algorithm updates, you can usually hone into a specific section of the website where they're churning out lots and lots of content at scale very quickly. So in this case, I'm using Ahrefs, and I'm looking at organic traffic compared to organic pages for different site sections. And when you see they're scaling lots of pages very quickly, maybe it's with AI content, maybe it's with programmatic SEO, and that content is not super helpful across the board, you might start to see traffic drop off with an algorithm update, in this case, this orange line. And that's because Google's saying this is too much content that's not helpful enough for users, and it's too much focused on SEO, not enough focused on helpful content. Google also puts together a huge response to parasite SEO, which they call site reputation abuse. They penalize both sponsored posts as well as a lot of those third-party partnerships. I'm sure we've all heard a lot about this. It's been a very, very public situation. For whatever reason, they haven't actually penalized the parasite SEO on user-generated content. So if you're interested in spamming Google, this is probably your best bet right now, for now at least. Google still loves user-generated content so much that I feel like they're putting a lot of the burden on the Reddits and the LinkedIn and the Mediums to do their own content moderation. But it's true that you can still kind of get away with a lot for now on those sites. But they're penalizing a lot of people. They also changed the language around site reputation abuse. And this was just one day in November last year before they penalized a bunch of very big brands. They said, you know what? We're changing this in a few ways. Number one, if you have freelancers that are writing for your publication, and also doing it in a way that we believe abuses the host site's ranking signals, that's a site reputation abuse violation. They also said there's no amount of first-party involvement that makes it okay. Which means if you have, let's say, freelancers or another company that's writing content for you, and you at the company, you at the main website, you're reviewing that content, you're editing that content, you're putting your name behind it, it doesn't matter. That's also a violation of site reputation abuse. So the impact of this was that it impacted many more companies than we originally thought were going to be impacted. I've worked with a number of these companies. Many of them were completely blindsided. They didn't know they were doing site reputation abuse by working with freelancers or having third-party content, but they quickly learned, because these are virtually impossible to recover from unless you literally no-index that content and you tell Google, I'm sorry, I won't do it anymore. I know there's a few examples of sites that are still playing the cat and mouse game and trying to hide from Google's web spam team, but generally speaking, the web spam team is watching you, and these types of tactics no longer work for SEO success. I spoke to Jeff Coyle, the SVP of strategy at SiteImprove and the MarketMuse co-founder. And he said, Google's methodology to assess content quality has evolved in the last few years to get ready for an age of infinite content. They look at site-level metrics, they look at topical authority, they look at differentiation and diversity. They also look at reshaping SERP features based on user intent. It's basically what Google's always wanted to achieve, but now it's much more easy for them to do than it was before. Meanwhile, the elephant in the room that Google's been working on this whole time, or at least the last few years, is AI, of course, Google's shiny new toys. I know we've heard a whole lot about this in the last few days, but we have AI overviews, also known as AIO, and AI mode, which they're scaling very quickly. Who here's played with AI mode yet? Yeah, I know it's harder to do in Europe, but we're starting to see a lot more of it in the US. I've been testing it, it's quite interesting. It's basically their response to ChatGPT. And what they're doing is, of course, as we've talked about with many talks throughout this conference, is it's impacting click-through rates. This is impacting our ability to receive traffic back to our websites. This was a great study by Seer Interactive, where they looked specifically at the click-through rates for organic search when AI overviews are present from last year compared to now. And as you can see, it dropped off dramatically from 1.41% to 0.64%. And if you project that out through April 2025, it's going to be even lower. And I know a lot of us are already feeling it. Unfortunately, we can't track this in Google Search Console, so it's very hard to know specifically what's happening. But I know those of us who have informational clients and publisher clients and everything like this, we're seeing the drop off in a pretty big way. So where does this leave us? It feels like for every SEO opportunity over the years, every gold rush, every big SEO, this is the new hot thing in the SEO space and it's working so well and I'm making lots of money and I'm ranking really well, it feels like Google has kind of patched up each and every one of those opportunities as an exploit. They see this as spam, and the definition of spam has been changing dramatically over time. A lot of what we consider to be good SEO and good content, Google actually sees as spam, which leaves many SEOs wondering, is the opportunity all gone? Is there anything left for us to do? And I would say this requires a shift in mindset. You can do great SEO without being stuck in this perpetual cat and mouse game. This is something I've been saying for a long time, since I got hit by the Penguin update a long time ago. If you don't play those types of games, you won't get in trouble, because there's a different way of focusing on SEO. There's a different way of thinking about the actual work that we're doing. And as the history of SEO reveals, the rules are always changing, and adaptation is key. So don't get disheartened if something you tried doesn't work. Let's just figure out how we can do this in a way where we're reducing risk for our clients and doing great work, the type of work that search engines and large language models want to reward. So this leads us to a new frontier of what I would call authentic SEO. And of course, optimizing for large language model visibility, which is very much the hot topic right now. I spoke to my good friend Mike King, founder and CEO of iPullRank. He is very excited about large language models and optimizing for them. And what he said is that we're at an inflection point in search, where we can either take the opportunity and decide who we are as SEOs and what we want to do, or we can just keep acting like the janitors of the internet, sitting at the little kids' table. So he really sees this as a big opportunity for SEOs to really think hard about how they're approaching their work. And it turns out there's a whole suite of new SEO tools. I know a lot of them are here with us today. They're innovating ways for us to track visibility within large language models. So the traditional way of thinking about SEO with rankings and traffic, that's changing, that's evolving as users' search behaviors are changing as well. It's no longer just about rankings and traffic. So I spoke to this great company, Profound, who's doing LLM visibility monitoring, and they're looking at how frequently is your company and the prompts that relate to what your company offers, how much visibility are you getting across the different large language models? How does that compare to your competitors? What's the sentiment around your brand and your products within the large language models? Profound also gave me some great content. Sorry, it's a bit hard to read. But basically, you can look within a tool like Profound to see which large language models are citing, third-party references the most. So with OpenAI, it's Wikipedia. With Perplexity, it's Reddit and YouTube. With AI overviews, of course, it's YouTube. No big surprise there. Google loves to cite its own products. And with Copilot, it's Forbes and Gartner. So using tools like this, you can understand where are my clients getting their traffic from, and is there ways that we can be more visible within those different kind of third-party citations to make sure that we're appearing when large language models are answering those questions. Profound's also doing some really cool new capabilities to actually monitor the accuracy of the answers within the prompts. And so there's a lot of innovation happening within these tools. For example, here you can see with Samsung keywords that they're checking how frequently the large language models are getting the information right or wrong. And that presents clients with an opportunity to say, hey, when people are asking about, let's say, accessories related to this Samsung Galaxy phone, and the large language model is getting it wrong, maybe there's a way that we can help our clients get in front of that information and proactively answer that information, so they're actually relying on the brand to answer common questions and get the information right. So they're not grasping at some 10-year-old Reddit post that doesn't actually answer the question correctly. And I would say if there's one thing you take away from this conference, it's that you need to be tracking large language model traffic in GA4, and you need to be taking credit for it. This is something I always say in the SEO space. Take credit for referral traffic from large language models as the SEO professional. You did that. That's SEO. That's organic traffic. Also Google Discover, take credit for that too. Too many SEOs are not taking credit for the actual work, or they're appearing across different surfaces with the great content that they're creating. So go home and Google how to set up, LLM tracking in GA4, and you can see for most companies, it's going up and up. It's still small, but it's absolutely growing. And Rand Fishkin's been doing some amazing talks about this. I recommend checking out some of the blogs and videos that he's doing about, well, my traffic is down, but revenue is up somehow. How is that happening, right? We're seeing this a lot with our clients. It's like, well, traffic dropped so much, but somehow conversions are up and revenue is up. And why is that? It turns out large language model traffic can come from highly qualified users. Think about it. If you're typing, what are the best running shoes? What is the best this and that? And ChatGPT tells you these are the best ones. Go buy them, right? They're taking you to the product page. They're taking you to a place to make a conversion or check out. And even though that doesn't come up as Google organic search traffic, it is an organic search, and you are getting conversions from that. So just because traffic is dropping doesn't mean you're necessarily worse off as a business. You might actually be better off. Will Reynolds, founder and CEO of Sear Interactive, has been talking about this a lot. He says in 2025, we have to do the work to re-educate our clients that the leading indicators, like traffic and rankings, that we taught them to judge us on no longer lead to the same outcomes. I also spoke to my good friend Viola Eva, founder of Flow Agency in Berlin. She works a lot on B2B, and what she says is that for her B2B clients, large language model traffic is up 500% since February of last year. It appears that traffic is really coming from highly qualified visitors. And across Flow's clients, large language model referrals convert at 0.7% on average and 2.3% at their peak. So that's not nothing. We're starting to see some great conversions come in from these tools. And also, SEO is not all doom and gloom. I know we talked a lot about different ways that Google and search engines have changed to kind of take away some of the opportunity from us. But we can still look at a lot of the sites that are winning. There's still big winners in the SEO space, and I work a lot with Systrix, shout out to Systrix, to look at the winners and losers over time. So who are the winners? There's a lot going on here, so you might want to take a picture. But basically, this is Systrix data between 2023 and 2025. And what I did was I took some of the most significant winners of SEO visibility during that time frame and broke it out into different categories. So we have user-generated content, of course, like Reddit and TikTok and Instagram and LinkedIn. Health and medical authorities with great EEAT, like the NHS and the Cleveland Clinic. E-commerce and marketplaces, we're seeing Google absolutely double down on e-commerce and Merchant Center and product feeds. So sites like eBay and Home Depot are really winning as a result of that. Media and entertainment, these sites are doing great SEO. Spotify in particular has been exploding in the last couple of years. Travel, hotels, and marketplaces, so we get Lonely Planet and TripAdvisor. A lot of these sites actually have a lot of first-hand experience and user-generated content that tends to rank really well. And then SaaS, tech, and software, of course, OpenAI is a brand new kind of player. But we also get sites like Adobe and Wise, who, if you look up some of the tactics that they're using, they're actually doing like programmatic SEO in a very effective way, so you can kind of read how they're doing that. But what do these companies and these sites tend to have in common? So I kind of summarized, what are these winners doing? Number one, I know we've talked a lot about this at the conference, but they have a lot of brand awareness. There's a lot of people searching for those brands, and Google and search engines have to give users what they're looking for. If they're expecting to see a certain brand when they type a certain keyword, that's basically one way that Google serves its users. We know you would expect to see these types of recognizable brands. They have strong EEAT for your money, your life topics. They also are often the direct providers of products and services, not as much the middlemen writing about those products and services. And they have a lot of user-generated content, real-world experience, and authentic reviews. This is something that really seems to be carrying a lot of sites that are doing very well in the SEO space. Now, for anybody working on affiliate sites, you might say, well, what about us? And it's true. It's harder than ever to succeed in the SEO space with affiliate content. But this is a site that's, generally speaking, been doing quite well in the last few years, and they are purely a product review site. They focus on fitness reviews, fitness products. And what are they doing? They're doing very hard work. It's all first-hand opinions and insights. They have robust review methodologies that they list on every single article. They really give clear evidence about how they're reviewing the products. They have videos, so you can't dispute that they're truly testing the products because every single page has a video showing that they actually are. They also have original photography. They're not using stock photos. They're using real pictures of the personal trainers trying the different products that they're testing. And they have real professional trainers reviewing the content, not fake ones, real ones that you can click on their page and go to all their social media profiles and see that they are actively real personal trainers. So none of this is easy, but they're seeing, generally speaking, very good success in the SEO space over time, and they haven't been hit in the same way that many affiliate sites have. And there's still a long list of approaches that search engines can never really take away from us. I would say number one is original data and research and opinions. This is a site called Wallet Hub. They invest in a lot of original content that's pretty much related to what they do as a service. They're a finance website. So they'll talk about happiest cities in America, best and worst places to retire, property taxes by state, and they conduct original research and surveys. And what does this do for them? It drives a ton of traffic, it drives a ton of links, it drives a ton of referring domains, and a lot of visibility for them. That's really carrying their site and driving a lot of links and visibility to their brand and helping them kind of set themselves apart from their competitors because they're doing this legwork of providing something new that the internet hasn't seen before. And something interesting about this is it's not just search engines where they're benefiting. If you type certain keywords like property taxes by state in 2025, ChatGPT referenced wallethub.com and linked to wallethub.com 10 times in this answer. So it's not just about getting SEO rankings and traffic. You can also see the benefits come in from large language models as well. And contributing firsthand experience to online communities pays for itself over and over. It's no secret that Reddit is the biggest winner of SEO visibility in the last few years by a huge, huge margin. Quora is also doing quite well. It's not just those sites. There's all kinds of forums that have been exploding in Google search in the last few years. You can see a lot of people having conversations on Reddit and Hub Pages and Stack Overflow and What to Expect about pregnancy and Just Answer and Rick Steves about travel questions. Google and LLMs love forums. They love to hear what real people are having conversations about, and that tends to show up really prominently in the search results. Having a strong personal brand and authentic social media presence is also something that search engines can't take away from you. This is something that I've been doubling down on with my clients and talking about. You've probably heard me talk about it before. I'm obsessed with this topic because it works. It really works. Become a recognized entity in Google's knowledge graph. Make sure your brand is recognized in the knowledge graph. Make sure that your authors and your experts and the leadership team at your company, to the extent that they're comfortable with it, you should be doing SEO for their names. Do SEO and show the world what they've accomplished and why we should trust them, because it's all tying together. This does result in better visibility for the content that they're creating and that your brand is creating. And it's no secret that the winners on Google recently have also been social media sites. We're seeing more Instagram posts or Instagram Reels being indexed and short videos. We're seeing Threads. Meta's new Threads product is actually, individual threads are ranking all over the place. TikTok videos and short videos. And X still ranks extremely well. LinkedIn Pulse is ranking really well. So being visible across different platforms and having those recognized entities and authors and experts active on social media does very well for SEO as well as large language model visibility. In fact, I've been playing around a lot with this because just a random question about myself, I spend Januaries in Argentina. I have for the last 4 years. And I post about it on my Instagram. I post about it on Blue Sky. I post about it once in a while on my personal website. And if you can ask any large language model, literally, where does the lead Ray spend January? Each one of them knows, oh, she spends it in Argentina. And it always comes from my social media posts. So once you become kind of a recognized entity in the knowledge graph, or once these tools kind of start to have a good understanding of who you are, they're looking at your social posts to understand what you're up to. I also did a test a couple of weeks ago where I wanted to see, just having a, let's say, authoritative LinkedIn profile where I think, LinkedIn and search engines know that I like to post every day, pretty much, about SEO stuff on LinkedIn. I have a lot of people that follow my LinkedIn. And I said, I'm going to write an article about Google Discover on LinkedIn Pulse. Wrote the article. Within 5 hours, it was ranking #1 on Google for how to optimize Google Discover and how to optimize Discover 2025, something like this. Within 5 hours, it was #1 on Google. It was also in Google's AI overviews being cited. It was also in Google's AI mode, all within 5 hours. So there's a lot of power here when you become a recognized entity with a lot of authoritativeness on a specific topic. You can start to play with these social media platforms a bit more. Kevin Indig does a lot of work about navigational search, and he looked at some data that basically correlated brand demand with LLM visibility. So the more demand is that there is for a brand, the more visible you'll be in large language models. I'm also always encouraging people to do YouTube, TikTok, Instagram Reels, and short videos. If you're producing a piece of content, create it as a video, talk on a video, have a short interview on the video, or just make it into a video. Sometimes you can use tools that do the talking for you, splice it up, publish it on Instagram, publish it on YouTube Shorts, publish it on TikTok, because that can get you cross-platform visibility as well. Rand Fishkin's always talking about appearing everywhere. You can use tools like his tool SparkToro to understand where my audience actually is. What subreddits are they hanging out on? What podcasts are they listening to? What YouTube channels are they watching? And how can we be more visible there? It's not just about driving traffic to your website. It's about engaging in those conversations where your audience spends its time. You can also repurpose original content. So for any piece of content, you want to make long and short videos. You want to do podcasts and interviews about it. You want to talk on Reddit and different forums about what you found. You want to make visual references and infographics. You can do conference presentations and post it on SlideShare. You can do social media posts and opinion pieces on user-generated content sites like Hub Pages or Medium or LinkedIn. So one piece of content can be repurposed in many different ways. By the way, the little survey that I conducted to do this, my team and I at AMSIV did exactly that. We said, why don't we take this original survey data, make it into a cute little infographic about the different eras of SEO history. So now we have this on the AMSIV blog. I also sat down and talked for 20 minutes on a video about my little SEO history project, right? And all the different eras of SEO, which then we spliced up into short videos, and now we're posting that across Instagram and TikTok and YouTube Shorts as well. And something I thought was kind of funny was I asked ChatGPT 2 days later, what are the 7 eras of SEO history? And it answered very matter-of-factly. All these different eras that we came up with, like the Stone Age and the Wild West. And there it is, a link to our AMSIV website, just from a blog that we posted 3 days ago. Pretty crazy. something that I also thought was funny, and this is a bit questionable, but we'll see how OpenAI responds to this, is I said, is this trustworthy? Is this a reliable article? And it said, well, sure. It's written by Lily Ray, and she's done all this great stuff. So given her extensive experience, Lily Ray's analyses and writings are considered authoritative and trustworthy. I was like, oh, there's a lot of power here. So if you can make yourself known for a specific thing online, apparently that's all it takes to get cited in ChatGPT as a reliable source. So, takeaways. The main takeaway from the 25 years of SEO history and the cycles of SEO. Don't get stuck in the cat and mouse game, because more likely than not, you'll eventually get caught. It's not just small players getting caught. At this point, very big brands are getting caught. So you really want to think, how can I do something that is not later going to be penalized or devalued and treated as spam? If an SEO opportunity feels too good to be true, it probably is. Taking shortcuts rarely leads to long-term growth. So really think about, is something that we're doing here just eventually going to be treated as spam, or is this something that we feel really good about as a brand? Invest in branding, authenticity, original insights, real-life experience, and community building. Because the reality is, these are things that you can focus on that search engines can never take away from us. Thank you so much, and enjoy the rest of the conference.
Yeah. Thank you, Lily. That was amazing. Really, really appreciate it.